Chapter 10, Lesson 1, the parabola and the circle. So we are going to get into this chapter, graphing conic sections. It's really fun. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about parabolas. Now, commonly in this class, and especially in Algebra 1, when we've done parabolas, we've been talking about our quadratics. So our y equals ax squared plus bx plus c quadratics. Now, that is a quadratic in standard form. What we're going to be focusing on for this chapter with our quadratics is what we called vertex form. And basically, vertex form comes from completing the square of the quadratic here. So the nice thing is then when it's in vertex form, we can just use the h and the k or whatever numbers are here and here to find our vertex or our turning point of our parabolas. Those are our vertexes. Now we're also going to add in this class, parabolas that are opened horizontally, which we've only ever really talked about the vertically opened parabolas. We are going to talk about ones this chapter that are also opened horizontally. So go ahead and write these down for these vertex forms. If you have a y equals, they are parabolas that open vertically. And if you have x equals, they are parabolas that open horizontally. Now, once we find our vertex of these parabolas, we are also going to talk about the axis of symmetry. So the axis of symmetry for our vertical parabolas is x equals h, and our horizontal parabolas is y equals k. So the first thing we're going to talk about is which way does the parabola open. So basically our parabolas can open up, down, open to the left, open to the right. So if I have a y equals, we know that they are going to open up or down depending on the beginning term. So if I start as a positive, a times parenthesis h minus x minus h squared, forgot the squared, plus k, it's going to open up. If I start with a negative, it'll open down. Same thing, if it's an x equals and it's a positive, I remember y minus k plus h squared, that will open to the right. And if I have a negative a, y minus k squared plus h, it'll open left. So let's just look at some of those. Oh, no, we're not yet. Okay. We're going to find the vertex of the parabola. If the equation only has an x squared value and it doesn't have like an x minus h squared, and there's no plus k, the vertex then would be at 0, 0, because there would be, if it's just x squared, there'd be nothing here and nothing here. If your equation has both an x squared and an x value, we must complete the square to find the vertex. So basically, we're going to have to get it into complete the square form to find the vertex. And if the vertex only has an x term, then your vertex is h comma k. So let's look. Tell how each opens, find the vertex, and then sketch the graph. So let's start with each of these, how they open. So this one is an x equals, so I know it's a horizontally opened, and it's a positive, so I know that it will open to the right. This is an x equaled, again, starts as a positive, opens to the right. This is a y equals, so I know it's going to be up or down, and it has a negative, it's open down. This one is an x equals positive, opens to the right. Y equals positive, up. x equals positive right. Now let's find the vertex. So in this one, there is nothing added to my y term and there's nothing added to the end. So my vertex is at 0, 0. This one, there's something with the y and there's something at the end. Remember, since this is with the y, we do opposite the sign. So the y term would actually be positive 4 because it's in the parentheses. And then my x term, if I cover up the y, my x term is negative 1. This one, the x term, I do opposite the sign. So the x is at positive 2, comma, y term, positive 2. And now on this one, we need to complete the square. So remember, I take half of the middle term and square it and add it to both sides. Well, we don't have to finish the equation, I guess. So if I put 9 over here, when I square the 3, that's where I get the 9 from. And then I need to get it so that it's on the same side. So I'm going to subtract it to both sides. And then that's going to give me negative 3. So again, since this is with the y term, it goes opposite the sign. And then if I covered up this, x would be negative 3. Okay, on this one, again, I take half the middle term and square it, which is 4. Then I'm going to have to subtract 4. So I get minus 9. Then the x term is opposite the sign, so negative 2. And then the y term would be 9. On this, okay, number 6, we have to complete the square to do this one. So remember that in order to complete the square, we have to have a leading coefficient of 1. I have a leading coefficient of 3, y squared. So my first step is going to be to divide everything by 3. So now I'm looking at x divided by 3 equals y squared plus 2y plus 7/3. So in completing the square, I want to take half the middle term, square it, and add it to both sides. Then I'm going to want to subtract the 1. X divided by 3 equals y plus 1 squared plus 4/3. Then multiply everything by 3 to get x back by itself. Oops, forgot the 1 in that step above. Plus 4/3 times 3 is 4. So on this one, my vertex opposite the y sign would be negative 1. Oops, that's the y, not the x. Here we go. Skipping the y. Negative 1. And then my x would be 4. Okay, so now we're going to go back and sketch all of these graphs. Pretty simple here. On the first one, we know that it's opening to the right, and my vertex is at 0, 0. The next one, opening also to the right, my vertex is at negative 1, comma 4. Opening down at 2, 2. Opening right at negative 3, 3. Opening up at negative 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And this last one, opening right at 4, negative 1. So those are just simple, quick sketches. We'll focus more on those coming up in the next couple, but on this one, all they asked us to do was tell how it opens, find the vertex, and sketch the graph. Okay, now we're going to be talking about circles, and the equation for the circle that you need to write down is parentheses x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So the center of the circle is at h comma k, and the radius is r. They also have this note here that the formula is also known as the equation for the circle in standard form. So if I'm looking at just a plain old x squared plus y squared equals 0, that means its center, since there's nothing added to the x term, nothing added to the y term, is 0, 0. Then remember this last one is r squared. So if I want to figure out what the radius is, I have to take the square root of 4, which is 2. So just a very basic picture of this circle would look like that. So on these, we're finding the center and the radius of each of the following, and then graphing the circle. So this one, there's nothing added to the x, nothing added to the y. So 0, 0. The square root of 9 is 3. This one, the opposite of negative 3 would be positive 3. Nothing added to the y. And the radius is square root of 25, which is 5. This one for the center, two opposites. So negative 3, negative 3. Square root of 4 to get 2. Okay, on this one, we can't have a leading coefficient. So the first thing I'm going to do is divide everything by 2, which makes it x squared plus y squared equals 9. Then the center is 0, 0, and the radius is 3. On number 5, first thing I'm going to do is divide everything by 5. So then my center is at 2, comma, negative 1. And my radius is the square root of 10. So on this first one, center at 0, 0, radius of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Number 2, my vertex is at 3, comma, 0, radius 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 3, negative 3, negative 3. Radius is 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Next one, 0, 0. Radius is 3. My pen is not keeping very well with my drawing. And the last one, 2, negative 1. And the radius is the square root of 10. So we're just going to go closest decimal we can. So it's about 3.2. So I'll just go 1, 2, 3, and a little bit past. 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 Next thing you're going to have to do is they're going to give you the center and the radius, and you just have to put it into the equation of the circle. So remember, we're doing opposite the signs on these centers. So my first one would be x minus 2 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 6 squared, which is 36. Remember, opposite the sign, so this would be x plus 7 squared plus y minus 6 squared equals 2 squared, which is 4. The next one lists the center as the origin, so that's 0, 0. So I'd have x squared plus y squared. And then the radius they had listed as the square root of 2. So when I re-square that, it comes back out as 2.